used to believe that family was the one place in the world you'd always be safe, the one place you could come back to no matter what, until the day my own mother looked me straight in the eyes and said, "We've all agreed you're not invited to your sister's wedding." I thought I would break right there. 30 years of being the eldest daughter, 30 years of sacrificing. I held my sister's hand when she took her first steps, when her heart shattered in high school, when she met the love of her life. I was the first person Sophie called when James proposed. I was supposed to be her maid of honor, and I had already spent over $15,000 helping plan the wedding. A wedding I was now banned from attending. You can forgive being forgotten, but how do you forgive being erased? Especially when it's your own blood who decided you no longer belong. If you've ever struggled with toxic family dynamics, betrayal by someone you love, or the pain of being cast aside, stay right here. Because this story might just be the permission you need to finally protect yourself. I don't remember the first time my mother chose Sophie over me. Maybe it was at age 6 when Sophie spilled orange juice on the white carpet and I got scolded for not watching her. Or maybe it was the way Mom beamed when Sophie sang off-key in church, calling her my little songbird while I stood next to them clutching my perfect report card, invisible. But I remember how it felt, a quiet sting, a silent adjustment inside me, like stepping back from a stage you were never really invited onto. Growing up, I played my role well. I became the helper, the fixer, the reliable one. While Sophie painted on the garage walls, I learned how to patch them up. While she brought home dream catchers and boys with guitars, I brought home scholarships and spreadsheets. And I didn't resent it, not really, because Sophie was my sister. She was sunshine, I was shadow, and I convinced myself that shadow was enough, as long as I got to walk beside her. When she met James, something shifted. He was different, polished, but kind. The kind of man who offered to help clear the dishes at family dinners, even though he wore a Rolex. The way he looked at Sophie like the whole world had narrowed down to her freckles and laughter, it made me ache in a way I didn't understand. But I was happy, truly. When Sophie called me that snowy December morning, voice cracking with joy, "Emily," he proposed, "You're going to be my maid of honor, right?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes," I said, "of course I will." I cleared my schedule, bought 3 new wedding planning apps. I color-coded spreadsheets, cross-referenced florists, arranged tasting appointments. My apartment looked like a bridal command center. Every Sunday we had coffee and cake samples at my place, giggling over Pinterest boards, debating lace versus tulle. For the first time in years, I felt close to her again, not just as her older sister, but as her person. But then, Mom got involved. It started small. A tone in her voice, a dismissive wave of her manicured hand whenever I made a suggestion. Then one night, during dinner at their place, she dropped the bomb. I've already booked the Fairmont Hotel for the wedding. They had a cancellation, I snatched it. The table went still. Sophie blinked, but Emily and I were still. "The Fairmont is perfect," Mom interrupted smoothly, topping off her wine. "Exactly what I envisioned for your day, and it books up a year in advance. We're lucky." I looked at Sophie. Waited, hoped. But Sophie just smiled, that soft, almost apologetic smile. "Thanks, Mom, that's generous." I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger, not jealousy. Something deeper, like the beginning of a fracture. After that, it was like watching a movie where the script changed and no one told you. Mom took over meetings, replaced vendors, picked colors Sophie and I hadn't agreed on. She said things like, "That's a bit too dull, darling. Trust me, I know better." I tried to talk to Sophie. "She's just excited," she told me. And honestly, it's helping me breathe. Planning this has been overwhelming, so I stepped back. But stepping back quickly turned into being pushed out. Then came Alyssa, my cousin, blonde, charming, always hovering at the edge of family gatherings like a shadow in lip gloss. Suddenly she was in photos, at tastings, holding fabric swatches, in my place. One morning, I opened Instagram and saw Sophie and Alyssa laughing at a cake, tasting the kind Sophie and I had planned to do together since college. No invite, no text. I remember sitting there frozen on my couch, coffee going cold in my hand. "Maybe Alyssa's just helping out," Daniel, my boyfriend, said gently that night. You've been swamped at work. Sophie probably didn't want to burden you. Burden. Was that how they saw me now? Not the sister who held Sophie's hand after every breakup paid for her tuition shortfalls, covered Dad's medical bill last spring in silence, but a burden. The messages stopped coming. No more updates about centerpieces. No more shared Pinterest links at 2 a.m. I called, she answered less. Texted, she replied late, dry. I told myself it was just wedding stress. That after the vows were said, we'd go back to our brunches and wine nights. We'd laugh about Mom's takeover. But deep down, something whispered, "You're not just being excluded. You're being erased." And soon the thing I feared most would arrive not with a confrontation, but with a soft, devastating silence. The kind you only hear when someone you love stops needing you. The silence wasn't loud. It was quiet, insidious, like fog creeping under a door. You don't notice it at first until the room is filled and you can't breathe. That's how Sophie's distance felt. She wasn't cruel. She didn't snap or yell or accuse. She just stopped including me. One weekend became 2, then 3. I'd scroll through Instagram and see her at florist appointments, laughing over wine tastings, holding dresses up to the light. Always with Alyssa, always with Mom, never with me. And I kept telling myself, it's fine, she's just busy, it's just a phase. But deep down, I knew. The breaking point came on a Tuesday afternoon. It was raining. I was at work half listening to a conference call when my coworker, Natalie, passed by my desk with a coffee in hand. "How was your sister's dress fitting yesterday?" She smiled. Sandra said she looked stunning. I froze. "What fitting?" Natalie's smile faltered. "At Elegant Moments, Sandra owns the boutique. She said your mom's sister and cousin were there for hours. Champagne and everything. I figured you were there too." I laughed. A little too fast. A little too sharp. "Ah, no last-minute work stuff. Couldn't make it." I stood and walked to the restroom, locked myself in a stall, and stared at the back of the door like it might give me an answer. We had talked about that day since we were teenagers. We used to drape pillowcases over our heads, pretending they were veils, promising, "We'll pick each other's dresses, no matter what." But now, she'd gone without me, and worse, hadn't even told me. That night I called her. I tried to keep my voice calm, measured, careful, like someone holding a match over gasoline. "How was dress shopping?" There was a pause on the other end, just long enough. "Oh, it wasn't a real appointment. Mom had a spot and brought Alyssa. We were just looking." Another pause. We needed a third opinion. I clenched the phone tighter. "You could have asked me. Emily, don't make this a big deal. There'll be plenty of other wedding stuff for you." But plenty never came. The bridal shower was planned without me, though I was still expected to help pay for the venue. The bachelorette weekend was organized by Alyssa, who picked a beach resort Sophie had never even liked. When I offered suggestions based on decades of knowing Sophie, I was met with, "That's not really Sophie's vibe anymore." I stayed quiet, again. But something inside me was starting to snap. Meanwhile, I was still contributing, quietly, generously, desperately. I paid the deposit for the photographer Sophie adored, the one Mom called too expensive. I ordered custom welcome baskets for out-of-town guests, and I planned in secret the ultimate gift, a honeymoon to Bali, first-class tickets, a private ocean view villa, sunset cruises, private cooking class, a waterfall trek. Everything Sophie had once described on a rainy night in our teens, curled under one blanket, dreaming of someday. I told myself she'll cry when I give her this. She'll remember who we are. She'll come back to me. But instead, she drifted further away. She started canceling our Sunday brunches, the ones we'd had for years. "Just busy, wedding stuff. Can we reschedule?" When we did talk, she was distant, distracted. It felt like I was talking to a version of Sophie sculpted by someone else, someone who smiled and nodded but didn't actually see me. And one night, I couldn't hold it in. "Is everything okay between us?" I asked her directly. She hesitated. "Of course, I'm just really busy. That's all. Mom's handling most of the details now. She's been amazing." Amazing. The same woman who'd shoved me out of planning. The same woman who'd started slipping my place away piece by piece without ever saying it aloud. Then came the night that changed everything. It was late spring. I'd driven to our parents' house for a family gathering. I went into the kitchen to refill my glass, and that's when I heard it. Their voices drifting in from the dining room. Emily's always been difficult, my mother said, calm as ever. Sophie's finally seeing it now. It must be hard for her, Alyssa replied, especially with Sophie in the spotlight for once. Exactly, my mother said. She's always had to be in control, make it about her job, her accomplishments. This wedding isn't about her and she can't stand it. I froze. The water overflowed my glass. I didn't move. They were talking about me like I was some toxic presence, like I was an obstacle, like I wasn't family. That night, I broke down in Daniel's arms. What if they don't want me at the wedding at all? I whispered. He held me tighter. That's not possible. You're her sister. You've done everything for her. But Mom's turning her against me, piece by piece, and I don't know if Sophie even sees it. Daniel looked at me, then steady and strong. Then talked to her. No more guessing, no more waiting. Ask her, face to face. He was right. I had to know the truth, even if it broke me. I texted Sophie the next morning. We need to talk about the wedding, about us. Her reply came hours later. I'm really busy. Come to Mom and Dad's Thursday, 7 p.m. We'll talk then. 5 days. 5 days to prepare for a conversation I wasn't sure I'd survive. And what I walked into that Thursday evening wasn't a conversation. It was an ambush. That night, the sky felt like it was holding its breath. No wind, no rain, just a suffocating stillness, as if the universe already knew what was about to happen. I parked in front of my parents' house, hands still clinging to the steering wheel. This was the house I grew up in, the house where I taught Sophie how to tie her shoelaces, the house I once believed was home. But that night, it felt more like an arena. I looked at myself in the rearview mirror. My face was calm. My eyes were trying to look strong. But underneath that mask, my heart was pounding so hard it could have burst from my chest. I walked up to the door. Before I could ring the bell, Mom opened it like she'd been waiting there all along. We're in the living room, she said, and turned away without waiting for a response. I stepped inside. The room, once filled with laughter, birthday cakes, and warm Christmas mornings, now felt cold, like a stage set for a performance I hadn't agreed to join. Dad was in his armchair looking confused and a little pale. Sophie sat perched at the edge of the couch, eyes downcast, fingers tangled nervously in her lap. Mom stood behind her, one hand on the back of the sofa as if shielding her, as if keeping her in place. And there in the spot that used to be mine, the place I always sat during family discussions, was Alyssa. Legs crossed, hair flawless, eyes gleaming with a mix of pity and triumph. I remained standing. No one offered me a seat. I thought we were going to talk. Just the two of us, I said, eyes locked on Sophie. But it was Mom who answered first. We thought it would be better to have everyone here. There are some things you need to understand about the wedding. The stillness inside me began to crack. I could feel it like the air right before a storm. Everything dense, heavy, like the worst hadn't happened yet, but was on its way. We've talked, Mom said with that gentle, pitying tone she used like a weapon, and honestly, your involvement in the wedding has been causing a lot of stress. My brow furrowed. Stress? For who? Everyone, she continued. You always want to control everything. Push your opinions. Even when you think you're helping, it puts pressure on Sophie. I turned to my sister. Sophie, is that how you feel? She didn't raise her head. She just whispered. It's all been really overwhelming. Mom thinks, I repeated. I looked at Sophie, searching for the last thread between us. Something real. Something unscripted. What about you? What do you think? But again, Mom cut in. What Sophie wants is a peaceful wedding, and unfortunately, your presence makes that impossible. The room didn't move, but my world tilted. I looked at Mom, at Dad, at Sophie. No one spoke. No one stood up for me. So, you mean I'm not allowed to help anymore? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Mom gave a tight, satisfied smile, the kind that said she'd been waiting for this moment. No, Emily, I mean, you're not invited. Not as maid of honor, not as a bridesmaid, not even as a guest. 1 second, too. Silence. Only the ticking of the old mantel clock filled the space, marking the moment I was no longer part of this family. I turned to my father. Dad. He lowered his head, avoided my eyes. The same man who had hugged me after my first college rejection, who once quietly wired me money when I couldn't pay rent, now chose silence. I looked at Sophie one last time. Is this really what you want? She looked at me, eyes red, but said nothing. I'm sorry, I said quietly, not for what I've done, but for believing I ever had a place in your life. I turned, walked away, and no one, not a single person, tried to stop me. Back in my car, my hands trembled, my eyes blurred. I pulled over 3 times on the way home, not because of traffic, not because of rain, but because I couldn't see through the tears. My phone kept vibrating message after message, but I didn't look. I knew they were from Mom, from Dad, maybe even Sophie. I couldn't read them. Not tonight. When I got home, Daniel was already waiting at the door. I walked toward him, and the moment he saw my face, the hope in his eyes shattered. I collapsed into his arms. Couldn't speak, could only cry. One tear, then another, and another. Tell me what happened, sweetheart, he whispered. And I told him everything, every softly delivered insult, every damning silence, every wordless cut that hurt worse than knives. When I was done, he said just one thing. They don't get to treat you like that. I whispered. But they did, and I let them, for too long. Daniel squeezed my hand. So, what are you going to do? I looked out the window. The city lights beyond the glass sparkled like frozen tears. I didn't know yet. Only one thing was clear. I deserve more than this. But what I didn't realize was that night wasn't the end. The final scene I thought had played out. It was only the beginning of something far bigger. And the real collapse hadn't even started. Sleep never came that night. I lay in bed with my eyes open, watching shadows crawl across the ceiling, trying to replay the scene like it was a bad play I could rewrite. But there was no mistaking it, no mishearing, no misunderstanding. My mother had looked me in the eye and said, "You're not invited." And my sister, my Sophie, had sat in silence and let it happen. By 4:00 a.m., I was at the kitchen table, a mug of cold tea beside me, staring at the numbers on my banking app. Photographer deposit, 2,500 welcome baskets, 800 surprise string quartet, $1, 200 custom calligraphy, place cards, $350 vintage hairpin to match our grandmother's earrings, $200 and the honeymoon. Bali, first-class flights, private ocean villa, sunset cruise, cooking class, waterfall hike, $800 and $600 all prepaid, all done quietly, all done with love. Over $15,000. $15,000 for a wedding I was no longer welcome to attend. At 5:12 a.m., I made a decision. No rage, no tears, just a quiet final clarity like glass shattering in slow motion. I opened my banking app and transferred the $600 honeymoon fund back into my personal account. Then I logged into the airline and hotel websites, canceled everything, typed an email to the travel concierge who'd helped me plan the villa. The plans have changed. Please issue full cancellations. Thank you for your discretion. Next, I opened my credit card statement. There they were, charges I hadn't approved, extra linen upgrades, last-minute favors, vendor add-ons I'd never agreed to. I called the company. Hi, I need to report unauthorized charges. Family members used my account without permission. It wasn't a lie, not really. My mother had taken enough. That ends now. When the sun finally rose, I felt weightless, not peaceful, not whole, but like something inside me had finally broken, and in the breaking, let the truth breathe. My phone had lit up with dozens of messages overnight. 3 missed calls from Sophie, 12 from Mom, 1 from Dad. That one hurt the most. The texts, they ranged from guilt trips to gaslighting. You're overreacting. You always make everything about you. After everything we've done for you, you've left us no choice. If you want to apologize, we can still fix this. Not one said I'm sorry. Not one said we were wrong. I left my phone face down and walked. Miles through the park, past couples jogging kids, feeding ducks, old men playing chess like the world hadn't just crumbled for me. And somewhere along the path it hit me. I was mourning. Not just the wedding, not just Sophie. I was mourning the version of my family I had imagined. The one I had fought to keep alive. The one that never really existed. Around noon, I met Olivia for lunch. She took one look at me and pushed aside her menu. "Tell me everything." I told her. The ambush, the words, the silence, the withdrawal, the gutting betrayal. Her eyes burned with fury by the end. "They did what your mother said that, and Sophie just..." She stopped herself, took a breath. "You know what? No, I'm not surprised." I looked up. "What do you mean?" Olivia hesitated. Then, "I didn't want to tell you this before, but your mom's been saying things for months. At Sophie's engagement party, she told my mom you were jealous of Sophie's happiness, said you were emotionally fragile. And at the Williams dinner last month, she said the whole family was walking on eggshells around you." I stared at her. "She said what?" "She's been planting seeds, Emily, just enough to make people doubt, to make it seem like you're the difficult one, the unstable one." I shut it down when I heard it. "But you know how your mom is. She does it quietly, like poison in water. It wasn't just Sophie. My mother had been undermining me everywhere with relatives, friends, colleagues, twisting the story before I even knew I was a character in it. But why?" I whispered. "Why would she do this?" Olivia's voice was calm but fierce. "Because you're everything she's not. You're independent, successful, loved on your own terms. She needs control, and you're the one thing she can't control." I sat in silence for a long time, and then I did something I hadn't done in years. I called my Aunt Catherine Dad's sister, the black sheep, the only person who ever warned me gently, quietly that Mom wasn't what she seemed. She picked up on the second ring. "Emily, I've been expecting this call." Her voice was warm, solid. "Are you okay?" "No," I said honestly, "but I need to understand." She sighed. "Your mother does this. She did it to me. When I was engaged to your father, she spread lies, turned people against me. She needed to be the center of attention. She created a rift so wide your dad almost walked away from the wedding. Why didn't I know this? Because she rewrote the story, and we all let her. There it was again, the thing I'd spent my life doing, letting her. "It's time someone stopped her," Aunt Catherine said quietly. "Do you want help?" I nodded, though she couldn't see. "Yes," I whispered, more than ever. Later that night, as I sat by the window with Daniel beside me, I turned my phone over. One message, time-stamped 3:42 a.m. From Sophie. "I'm so sorry. I just found out about the honeymoon. Mom lied to me about everything. She showed me fake texts. She changed the contact name in my phone. Please, call me. I need my sister back." I stared at the screen, my finger hovering over the reply button. Her words sounded real, raw, desperate. But after everything that had happened, was it too late? Was there even a version of us left to salvage? I stared at Sophie's message for what felt like hours. "Please, call me. I need my sister back." My thumb hovered over the reply button, but I didn't press it. Not yet. For months, I had questioned everything: my place, my worth, my memories. Now I had confirmation that my mother had lied, manipulated twisted facts until even Sophie couldn't tell what was real anymore. And now Sophie wanted to rewind the damage with a few lines of regret. But I didn't want words. I wanted the truth. The next day I called Aunt Catherine again. "I think I need to talk to Sophie, but not until I have everything. Not just my side, the whole picture." "Good," she said, "because your mother didn't just sabotage your relationship with Sophie. She tried to rewrite you to everyone. Can you help me prove it?" She paused. "Yes, and I think it's time your father heard it too." That evening I emailed Sophie. "We need to meet. Just you and me. No Mom, no Alyssa, no noise. I'm not ready to talk about forgiveness, but I need answers." She responded instantly. "Yes, name the place." 2 days later, I sat at a quiet cafe across from Sophie. She looked different. Not physically, but emotionally. Smaller. Quieter. Her usual sparkle replaced by guilt hanging in her eyes like rain clouds. "Thank you for coming," she said softly. "I wasn't sure I would." She looked down. "I don't deserve kindness right now." "Then don't expect it," I said gently. "I'm not here to make you feel better. I'm here to understand." I reached into my bag and placed a folder on the table. Bank statements, emails, screenshots of texts she never received, confirmation numbers for the honeymoon, all time-stamped, all real. I watched her flip through them. Her face slowly drained of color. I didn't know, she whispered. I swear, Emily, I didn't know she was intercepting your texts. She changed the contact name in your phone. Sophie nodded. James figured it out. She had your name saved under her number, so when she texted horrible things, pretending to be you, I believed it. And when you actually texted, she deleted them before I could see. Her voice cracked. I thought you didn't care anymore, that you didn't want to help. That's exactly what she wanted you to think. I let that sit. The sound of clinking cups and hushed conversations filled the space between us. There's more, Sophie finally said. What more could there be? She told vendors that you were unstable, that you might ruin the wedding if included. That's why some of them wouldn't respond to your emails. They thought you were being phased out, for a reason. I felt the heat rise in my chest, rage, sadness. 100 memories refracted through a lie. So she wasn't just trying to cut me out, she was destroying my credibility. Sophie nodded. And she nearly convinced me, until the honeymoon. What about it? When it got canceled, she told me you did it to be petty, but she slipped. She said too much. James started asking questions. That's when we found the folder on her iPad where she'd kept screenshots of the fake texts, notes, plans, lies. She took a breath. She wasn't reacting. She was planning it, months in advance. I pressed my hands together, letting the full weight of it sink in. Sophie, you sat there in silence while she erased me. I know, she whispered, and I hate myself for it. Do you know what it felt like to have the person I loved most in the world sit there and watch me disappear? Tears spilled down her cheeks. I thought I was protecting the peace, she said, but all I did was protect her control. I took a deep breath. This isn't just about a wedding. This is about a lifetime of quiet erasure, of being the dependable one, the invisible one, the one who cleans up everyone else's mess. Sophie reached across the table. Her hand trembled. I want to fix this. Not just for the wedding, for us. I didn't take her hand. Not yet. Then start by helping me expose it. That evening we met with James, then Dad, then Aunt Catherine, all in one room. I brought the folder. Sophie brought the iPad. James brought screenshots. Catherine brought receipts, literal and emotional. And Dad? He brought the silence of a man who finally saw what he'd been pretending not to see for too long. We laid it all out. The fake texts, the manipulated calls, the financial sabotage, the emotional warfare. And when we were done, Dad looked at the documents and then at us. I always knew your mother liked to be in charge, but this is cruelty. His voice cracked. I should have stopped it years ago. I'm so sorry. For the first time in my life, I saw my father not as passive but as broken, and maybe healing. We planned an intervention, a meeting, not to destroy, but to finally confront. It would happen in 2 days, and if Mom refused to face the truth, she wouldn't just lose control, she'd lose her daughters. I didn't sleep the night before. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring out the window, watching the city blink and breathe in silence. Below the hum of the streetlights and the occasional car horn, something else pulsed dread and resolve. This wasn't just about the wedding anymore. This was about history, about patterns, about a mother who shaped reality like wet clay and pressed us all into molds we never chose. The next evening, we gathered in Aunt Catherine's living room. It was neutral ground, far enough from Mom's kingdom, close enough to truth. Me, Sophie, James, Aunt Catherine, my father, and eventually, her. The room was silent when Mom arrived. She walked in wearing pearls and composure, like she always did. Perfume-light lips painted back straight, as if this were a luncheon, not a reckoning. What is this? She asked, scanning the room with wary eyes. No one answered immediately. She looked at Dad. He didn't move. This isn't funny. Still no one spoke. She turned to me last. Emily, if this is another dramatic episode, I suggest you sit down, I said quietly. She froze, and for the first time in my life, she obeyed. Dad was the first to speak. Deborah, there are things we've discovered, and we're not leaving until we talk about them. She smiled, cold, controlled. If this is about the wedding, I've already explained. It's not just the wedding, Sophie said, voice trembling. It's everything. James pulled out a printed set of document screenshots, timelines, text logs. We know what you did. We have the messages you faked, the texts you deleted, the folder on your iPad. Mom's lips parted not in denial but in calculation, like a chess player seeing too many pieces about to fall. You read my private files. Don't deflect, I said. We're not here for your performance, we're here for the truth. She glanced around the room, her armor cracked. I was trying to protect Sophie. By lying to her, I snapped. By replacing me, by telling the entire family I was unstable. Her voice sharpened. Because you are unstable. You've always been too sensitive, too intense. Everything becomes a crisis with you. No, Sophie said, rising to her feet. Not anymore. You don't get to rewrite Emily's story, or mine. Mom turned to her. Don't speak to me like that. Then don't treat your daughters like enemies. There it was, the line drawn. No more circling, no more passive obedience. Just daughters standing eye to eye with the woman who taught them love came with a leash. Aunt Catherine placed something on the table. A letter, faded, handwritten. This is from 30 years ago. The first time you turned people against me when I got too close to Richard. You tried to stop our wedding. You told his parents I was manipulative, that I was dangerous. Mom's face went pale. You've been doing this for decades, Catherine said softly. Now it ends. For a moment, I thought Mom would lash out a verbal grenade, a scream a storm. But instead, she cried. Tears fell in perfect silence. Not messy sobs, just quiet trembling weeping, the kind that made you want to reach out and also flinch away. I didn't know how to be anything else, she whispered. No one spoke. I never felt needed. I needed to matter. And you, both of you, didn't need me. You didn't want to be needed, I said. You wanted to be worshipped. Silence. Then Sophie stepped forward. You have a choice. You can face what you've done and start over with boundaries, with honesty, with help, or you can keep pretending and lose us. It hung in the air, the ultimatum no one wanted to say but everyone felt. Mom looked at Dad. You're really siding with them. And for the first time, my father didn't flinch. I'm siding with the truth. Mom stood. For a moment, I thought she'd storm out. But she nodded, not with grace, not with warmth, but with recognition. Fine, she said. Then I'll start with this. She turned to me. Emily, I'm sorry. The words landed like wet ash, real but heavy. Not healing. Not yet. But maybe. The first step. That night, I walked out of Aunt Catherine's house feeling like I had just climbed out of a collapsed building. Covered in dust, exhausted but alive. And for the first time in years, maybe in decades, I could finally see the sky. The next morning, I woke to a quiet I didn't recognize. It wasn't the silence of loss. It was the silence that follows demolition, when the dust settles and you're finally able to see what survived the blast. My phone buzzed with a message from Sophie. You okay? I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. Not really, but maybe that's a good thing. Because for the first time, I wasn't trying to make it okay. I wasn't smoothing it over. I wasn't apologizing just to keep the peace. I was letting it hurt because it should hurt. In the days that followed, everything felt suspended. Mom didn't reach out. Dad did. I want to talk, he said over the phone. Just us. We met at a quiet coffee shop near the library I used to love as a child. He looked older than I remembered. Not because of time, but because for the first time, he wasn't hiding behind peace. I failed you, he said, over and over again. I didn't respond. I let him keep going. Your mother has always needed to feel important. And I thought if I just kept my head down, kept things calm, she'd stay balanced. But you let her hurt us to do it, I said. He nodded, slowly, painfully. I know, and I don't expect forgiveness, but I want to change how I show up for you, if you'll let me. I looked at him not as my father, but as a man learning far too late how to speak. Start by showing up, and don't stop. Meanwhile, Sophie and I began talking again. Not every day, not like before, but real, honest. We met in parks, at bookstores, at the bakery we both loved as kids. I don't know how to be a sister again, she said once. Not after what I let happen. Then don't try to be who you were, I told her. Be who you're becoming. One afternoon, she handed me a letter. Inside was a handwritten note, raw and uneven. I chose silence. I chose safety. but I never stopped needing you. I was just afraid I didn't deserve you anymore. I didn't cry. But something cracked open in me. Something long frozen finally began to thaw. And then came the wedding, 3 weeks away. Sophie invited me to return as maid of honor. I didn't say yes immediately. I'm not sure I can stand up there and pretend everything's been fixed, I told her. Then don't, she said. Don't pretend. Just be there, honestly, as my sister, not my savior. We rebuilt the wedding around a smaller team. No more mom in control. No more Alyssa in the middle of everything. Sophie and James took charge. I helped, but only when asked. I wasn't the fixer anymore. And surprisingly, I didn't want to be. Then one afternoon, I got a call from our wedding planner. Hi, Emily, just a heads up. Your mom reached out. She wants to update the seating chart and have her friend from the country club deliver the opening toast. I froze. Did she run that by Sophie? She said Sophie approved it. But something about the way she said it felt off. My stomach dropped. I called Sophie. Did you ask Mom to take over the seating plan? Her silence was answer enough. No, she said. I haven't spoken to her in 3 days. I sighed. Of course. Of course she was trying to claw her way back in. Later that night, I got another message. This one from a blocked number. But I knew who it was from the first line. You may think you've won, but I'm still your mother, and you'll regret humiliating me. Just like that, the illusion of progress shattered. She wasn't done. She never was. And now, she was going to make her move. You'd think that once the truth was out, it would be over. That the monster exposed in daylight would shrink. That the silence would become peace. That the damage would finally begin to heal. But monsters don't always live in the dark. Sometimes they live in the mirror. Sometimes they wear pearls and offer you tea while they poison your name. The message she sent, blocked number, veiled threat. You may think you've won, but I'm still your mother, and you'll regret humiliating me. Sat on my phone like a venomous brand. Daniel saw it first. You need to show this to Sophie, he said, now. I hesitated, because some part of me still wanted to believe she wouldn't cross the line. But the truth was, she'd never left it intact. I sent it to Sophie, no filter, no explanation. Her response was immediate. She told James the same thing yesterday, but worse. What do you mean? She threatened to tell people that you're unstable, that you've been stealing money from the wedding fund, that you sabotaged everything. I stood frozen in my kitchen heart, beating so loud I couldn't hear anything else. The air felt thick, like betrayal had weight, like it had shape, a presence. She wasn't trying to guilt me anymore. She was trying to destroy me. The next day, I walked into the office and immediately knew something was wrong. My coworkers, usually warm, relaxed, grew quiet as I passed. Some offered tight smiles, others avoided eye contact entirely. Sandra, our receptionist, looked especially awkward. Emily, I don't know how to say this. What happened? Your mother came by, she made a scene, said you were having a breakdown, accused you of financial fraud, said she was your emergency contact. My blood turned cold. She what? Don't worry, Sandra said quickly. No one believes her. Mr. Daniels escorted her out. But still, people are talking. Of course they were, because that's what she did best. She never needed proof, just whispers. I spent the rest of the day numb. What kind of person does this to their own child? What kind of mother poisons her daughter's reputation for the sake of pride? That night, I told Daniel everything. I sat on the couch and let it pour out until the words felt like sand in my mouth. She's unraveling, he said. And when people like her lose control, they don't retreat. They escalate. So what do? You get ahead of it. And so I did. I drafted a letter, not to defend myself, but to name the truth. I wrote it to my friends, my extended family, my coworkers, anyone she might try to reach. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't angry. It was honest. You may hear stories about me in the coming days. I want you to know the truth. My mother and I are no longer in contact due to a long history of emotional abuse. This isn't a request for sympathy. It's a boundary. I'm okay. I'm safe. I'm healing. Please don't feed the gossip. Just know I'm doing what I need to protect my peace. I clicked send. Then I turned off my phone and cried. Not because I was afraid, but because it's terrifying to speak the truth out loud when you've been trained your whole life to stay small, quiet, obedient. The next morning, my inbox was flooded. dozens of replies, almost all of them kind, supportive, understanding. But one stood out. It was from my grandmother, Mom's mother, a woman who'd always seemed fragile, polished, passive. Her message was only 2 lines. "I believe you. I've lived in that silence, too." I sat back, heart-thudding, because maybe this wasn't just my story. Maybe there were other women across generations, across time, who had been erased by the same hand. And maybe it ended with me. But just as I felt the shift in the tide, my phone buzzed again, this time from James. "You need to come over, now." "What's going on?" "It's about the wedding. Your mom just made a move we didn't see coming." When I arrived at Sophie and James' apartment, the tension was thick enough to taste. James opened the door before I could knock. His face was pale, jaw tight. "Come in," he said. "You're not going to believe this." Sophie was pacing the living room, still in her pajamas, her hair in a messy bun. She didn't even look up. "She filed a complaint," she said. "What kind of complaint?" James handed me a letter, printed official on legal stationery. "Your mother contacted the venue, claimed you're unstable, said she has documentation, emotional outbursts, financial manipulation, erratic behavior. She's trying to get you officially banned from attending the wedding." I laughed. At first it was a dry, hollow sound. Then it grew into something sharper, more cracked. Because of course she did. Of course she couldn't accept losing control. "They can't do that," I said. "No," James agreed, "but it gets worse." He showed me an email thread between their planner and the Fairmont's management team. My mother had also requested a name change on the reservation contract, replacing Sophie with herself as the lead contact. She claimed Sophie was unwell and that she, as the mother of the bride, needed to take charge. "She's trying to hijack the wedding," Sophie whispered. "She's not trying," I said. "She's already doing it." I sat down slowly, my hands shaking for the first time in days. Not from fear, but from the sheer searing fury of it all. She wasn't content with erasing me. She wanted to rewrite the ending entirely and cast herself as the savior. Sophie looked up at me, eyes red but burning. "I'm done." "What do you mean?" "I'm calling the venue today. I'm locking her out. I don't care how much money she put down. I don't care what story she spins. If she shows up on the wedding day, security will escort her out." James placed a hand on her shoulder, grounding her. "We're not losing our day to her." But it wasn't just their day anymore. It was a symbol of everything we were reclaiming. Sophie's freedom, my dignity, our right to choose who got to be part of our joy. That afternoon, Sophie and James officially removed my mother from the planning documents. They changed passwords, locked guest lists, warned every vendor. I sat with them through the calls, helping only when asked. No fixing, just being. And for the first time, I saw something new in Sophie. Not regret, resolve. That night, I got a call from an unknown number. I knew who it was. I answered anyway. "Emily," my mother's voice said. "Calm, too calm. You've embarrassed me. You've divided this family. And for what attention?" I didn't reply. "You think Sophie will thank you for this? She'll resent you, just like I do." Still, I stayed silent. "You'll regret destroying your own blood." I took a slow breath. And then, for the first time, I spoke the words I never thought I'd say. "You're not my blood. You're my history, and I'm not obligated to bleed for you anymore." Then I hung up and blocked the number. The next morning, Sophie sent me a photo. It was the final seating chart. There in soft script beside her name was mine. Maid of Honor, Emily Carter. No drama, no footnote. Just a truth finally written down. We were reclaiming our story. But just when I thought we had crossed the final battlefield, another text lit up my phone. From an anonymous sender. No name, no signature. Just one line. "She's not done. Check your email now." The email was short. No greeting, no signature. Just a forwarded document and anonymous tip sent to the venue's corporate office and the wedding vendors. A letter written by my mother. 6 pages. Accusing me of mental instability, claiming I had fabricated the fake texts, suggesting I had embezzled funds from the wedding, that I was dangerous and a liability to any public event. She even included manipulated screenshots, fake text threads that made it look like I'd threatened to ruin Sophie's big day. I stared at the screen breath caught in my throat. It wasn't just sabotage. It was character assassination. I forwarded the email to James and Sophie, attached the real evidence, the bank statements, the real text chains, the metadata proving the forgeries were hers. But my hands were trembling. "Why is she doing this?" I asked aloud, though no one else was in the room. Daniel answered quietly from the doorway. "Because this is the last place she has power left fear," Sophie called within minutes. Her voice shook with fury. She sent the same letter to my boss, James's parents, even the florist. I was stunned. What is she trying to do? Make sure everyone questions your worth, even if they never say it, even if it just lingers like a whisper. So what now? Sophie didn't hesitate. We don't cancel. We don't run. We stand. The next 72 hours were a blur. Sophie and James personally contacted every vendor, every guest who had been targeted. They shared the truth, backed it up with evidence. Some people didn't respond, some sent their sympathies. But the most important voices stayed firm. "We believe you. We'll be there." The morning of the wedding arrived clear and gold and still. I stood in Sophie's dressing room watching her in the mirror. She wore the dress I hadn't seen her choose, but somehow it looked like something we would have picked together years ago. White lace, soft neckline, sleeves, like sunlight on skin. "Are you nervous?" I asked. "No," she said. "Not about marrying James." She turned to me. "Just everything else." I adjusted her veil. "Whatever happens out there, we walk through it together, even if the storm shows up at the front door." The ceremony began at 4. The room was full, warm, still a little tense, but we stood strong. When the music started and Sophie walked down the aisle, James's face lit up like he was seeing color for the first time. She reached the altar. The minister asked, "Who gives this woman away?" And instead of our mother, it was our father who stepped forward. She gives herself, and we, her family, stand beside her. The crowd fell silent. And for the first time, I saw tears in his eyes. Not from fear, but from finally choosing the right side. The ceremony was perfect in all the imperfect ways. A flower girl dropped petals too early. Someone sneezed during the vows. But it was real, raw, unscripted, ours. The reception felt like breath after suffocation. Laughter, dancing, toasts that didn't feel rehearsed or forced. And then, just as we began to believe we had made it through, she arrived. My mother, in black, not mourning declaring war. She stood at the entrance of the ballroom, poised untouched by the storm she had caused. I froze. Sophie went still. James moved forward, but I stepped in front of them both. "No," I said, "I'll handle this." I walked across the floor. The music dimmed. Her eyes met mine. "You can't stop me," she whispered. "This is my family." "No," I said, calm, clear. "This is our boundary, and you don't cross it anymore." I gestured to security. And for the first time in my life, I watched someone else remove her power. She was escorted out. No screaming, no begging, just silence. Because she knew. It was over. The rest of the night unfolded like exhale after a storm. And somewhere near the end, as Sophie and I danced barefoot on the edge of the floor, she leaned in and whispered, "Thank you for not letting her win." I looked at her, the little girl who used to follow me around with scraped knees and wild dreams. Now a woman finally free. "We didn't win," I said. "We reclaimed." Months later, life moved on. Therapy, healing, letters we didn't send, photos we finally printed. Mom stayed quiet, at least for now. But even if she rises again, even if the silence breaks, we're not the same women she tried to raise in her image. We've redrawn the lines, and this time, we're standing on our own side, together.